Welcome, dear readers. Got to get comfortable. Sorry, that must have been fun for you. So, today I am coming to you with my October 2019 wrap-up. So I read, according to Goodreads, I read 5 books in the month of October, and I'm going to go through them chronologically, even though there would be a nicer way in my mind to organize them that I did in my reading vlog, but let's get into it. So the first book that I read was the Splendor of Fear by Ambrose Ibsen. That was a book about 2 people, Penny and Jason, I believe, who decide to go on a camping trip into the woods one weekend. And it turns out that they've gone on the weekend of the anniversary of a local witch's murder there in the 1800s. And basically everyone who lives in the area avoids it over those few days. But they are not superstitious, they are not believers, and they're not really from the area. So they go, and things happen. I really enjoyed it. From recollection, I gave it a 4 out of 5. At first, I wasn't too keen on either of the characters. Penny says something in the beginning of the book like she lets him spend time with his friends, and that really bothers me because just because you're in a romantic relationship with someone doesn't mean you owe them all of your time and all of your energy. You're allowed to have time to yourself. You're allowed to have time with friends. And just that bothered me. And then Jason decided to take Penny out on this camping trip, even though she hates doing the outdoorsy kind of stuff, which wouldn't be so bad because it's super important to him, but then he tries to force her to like put a worm on a hook for fishing and things, even though she finds it cruel, and that really irked me. Again, as someone who is not a fan of fishing. I mean, I understand people have got to eat, but as a vegetarian, like the whole concept, if my husband did that to me, I'd be super pissed at him. But yeah, so all in all, and the haunting was pretty cool. It was nice to see, instead of just being in like one haunted house like a lot of Ambrose Ibsen's works are, it was in a whole forest, so it sort of gave a bit of scope to the haunting. And yeah, so that's the first book I read. And then I read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz. I read it in one collection, which so it only counts as the one book, but it's actually a collection of the 3 books, and all 3 of those books have a bunch of short stories in them that I'd never read before. I mean, I knew some of the stories, some of them were kind of, you know, folklore-y. Yeah, I don't know if Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was a thing we really had here when we were kids in Australia. I mean, obviously the book would have been available somewhere, but it wasn't like a cultural phenomenon or anything as far as I'm aware. Goosebumps was really big, so I read a lot of those. So this is the first time reading it for me, and I gave it a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. I thought the collection was very diverse and unique, but at the same time, I feel like I really would have enjoyed it more if I'd read it when I was younger. But I had a good time with it all in all. The illustrations were really cool. It came with the original illustrations. There's been another illustrator since then, because apparently the book was sort of, it wasn't banned, but it wasn't very popular amongst the adults in the 90s. And they released the 30th anniversary edition. They actually released it with different illustrations, but there was such a backlash from the original fans and everything that they released it again with the original illustrations. So I got the one with the original illustrations, and they're eerie and creepy, and they play with dimension and expectation really well, I think. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I then read The Samson Apartment 10 by Ambrose Ibsen, And I also gave that one a 4 out of 5. I had a lot of 4 out of 5s this month. I liked the main character, Victoria. She had an interesting idea about what she wanted from life, which was really cool. And she moves into this really crappy apartment building in a really crappy studio apartment because she doesn't want to live in the dorm rooms anymore because she's just had too many bad experiences with roommates. And it's close by to campus, it's cheap, so she decides to go ahead with it even though her dad has reservations about the building and everything. And yeah, and then a seance occurs in her apartment as part of her housewarming party. And things just go really downhill from there. And I liked this one because it sort of has... It's got multiple facets to the haunting, which I really enjoyed. I don't want to say too much because then I might spoil it for you guys if you decide to read it. But I really enjoyed it. I liked the sleepy college town setting. We don't really have a lot of that here in Australia, so it was interesting to read from that point of view. I mean, I live in Sydney, so I live in a very busy city, so I especially don't have much experience with a sleepy college town kind of vibe. So that was nice. Hello, Malcolm. You gonna help me? There we go. And yeah, so I enjoyed that. I started reading The Ghost of Miller's Crossing by David Clarke. And that is a book about a man who can see ghosts. And he has been able to see them for basically his whole life. And he was institutionalized because of it, because nobody believed him. And then we flash forward to his adulthood. He's got kids. And he's moving back to his hometown. So we get to follow along with that. And there's really not much more I can say because when you go back to the hometown and some revelations are revealed, it killed all the tension and all the interest for me. So I ended up DNFing it because I went for like 2 weeks without reading anything because I kept thinking, well, I should finish this book, and just didn't want to. So, and it's not because it's a bad book or anything like that. Though I will mention there are quite a few grammatical errors and spelling mistakes and things like that. It sort of went into a religious territory, which I'm not a fan of, and just things happened that didn't make it interesting for me anymore, so I decided to DNF it, and I picked up The Haunting of Beacon Hill by Ambrose Ibsen. You can see the theme. This month was the month of Ambrose Ibsen. I really liked this one. As far as I'm aware, this is his most recent book. Fairly certain I also gave it 4 out of 5. This is also the month of 4 out of 5 reads. And it follows a girl named Sadie who works in a library, so that aspect was really cool because you got to hear about her talking about books and her love of books and everything like that. So if you're a big reader, you know, you'll probably appreciate that aspect of the book. And she used to be able to see spirits when she was younger, but it scared her family, so she worked really hard to put it behind her, sort of put the effort into erasing it from her memory. And I really enjoyed the haunting of this. It's the typical, you know, this is the local haunted house, let's go in and explore and see what we find, and then uh-oh, something happened and we found the thing we shouldn't have found. Except that isn't what Sadie did. Sadie's actually trying to help the girl that happened to. So that had a few interesting plays on a typical trope within haunted horror, and I really enjoyed that. It's also the first book in a series, and the way this book ended, I'm definitely going to continue with this series. It was really awesome, basically. And there's an overarching mystery from Sadie's childhood that sort of plays out throughout, and you get the impression that it's going to be solved. I don't know how many books in this series he's planning. A lot of his book series have like 3 books in it. I think one of them has 4. So I don't know if it'll be just a duology or not, but you really get the impression that there's something really big and sinister happening, and has been happening for basically her whole life that she's unaware of. Also, I really liked the supporting character, August. He doesn't see ghosts. He's also a librarian, though he's a bit less interested in reading than Sadie is, but he still enjoys it. And he's very snarky and supportive and everything like that. So yeah, check that out if you're into horror. And then I finished off the month reading Whispering Corridors, also by Ambrose Ibsen. So this one, I was thinking about giving a 3 out of 5, but I think sort of the ending and the way it all wrapped up, I ended up giving it the 4 out of 5 anyway. Though I enjoyed it a little less than The Haunting of Beacon Hill. This one is from 2016, so we're going back in time a bit in regards to his writing style and his writing ability. And this one is, again, it's a sleepy college town. These two kids decide to go into the local haunted house because Lydia wants to make a documentary about the supposed haunting and things like that. And things just go very, very wrong for them. They basically come out with a curse. And the book just unfolds in a satisfying way, I would say. There are a few twists and turns. There are a few, is that how it happened? Is that going to be okay sort of aspects to the story? And also it's written, the end is kind of written at the beginning, so you already really know the ultimate ending of the story, but it's still fun to go through and watch the story unfolding. I wasn't too keen on the main characters at first. I warmed up to them a bit. They were just, you know, the typical selfish college kid character trope, which, you know, to be fair, when we're younger, we're all kind of selfish because we don't really know any better. But they did bother me a little bit, but I did warm up to them, and I cared about what happened to them, and the haunting itself was actually also really cool. I'm pretty sure it's on the blurb, so this isn't really a spoiler, but the bad guy is the upside down man, and he just sounds really creepy and cool. And yeah, so I had a really good reading month, aside from that one book I DNF'd. I wish I could have read more, but on the other hand, I did actually read more this month than I have most months, so I'm pretty happy overall with how that went. And yeah, I'm hoping November will also be a good reading month for me. One thing I did notice reading a lot of the same author's books in a short succession of time as well is you can sort of, firstly, pick up on their development as you read more recent books compared to older books. And I think he's definitely developed his style a lot, which is good. I mean, you'd want that to happen as a writer. And you also sort of pick up on some quirks in the writing and things that they, like stylistic aspects of the writing as well, which was actually a really enjoyable thing for me to pick out. Especially as an aspiring author myself, so I was able to sort of see how he developed his voice, and yeah. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video soon, which will be my November priority reads video. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, subscribe if you'd like, and I will see you all soon.